In Vietnam, if you are caught with more than 2 kilograms of drugs, you can be sentenced. And in Vietnam, if you rape a minor, you are not just dead, but you are dead. Vietnam, if you murder anybody or if you are involved in any murder crimes, you are highly to be sentenced to death and finally executed. So,
guys, if you've enjoyed this video so far, please do me a huge favour and hit the like button and subscribe. These videos take quite a long time to make, so if you could help me out, I'll love you forever. Thank you all for your support. Now let's get back to this crazy story.
this video is to educate the general public on crimes that can lead to death penalty in Vietnam. Following Margaret Luther's death sentence, most people have began to get concerned, thinking that is the first time. This is not the first time. It has happened in many instances. And so in Vietnam, you need to follow the law according to how it is. Now, I'm going to show you some offenses that when you engage in or when you are accused of and sentenced to by a proper court in Vietnam, you could be sentenced to death. The first one is offenses regarding to drugs. So just like in Margaret Luther's case, in Vietnam, if you are caught with more than 2 kilograms of drugs, you can be sentenced. And it goes like this. So number one is drug trafficking, smuggling, possessing, transporting, or distributing large quantities of illegal drugs. Example, 100 kilograms of heroin or cocaine or 5 kilograms of cannabis can lead to execution in Vietnam. Again, drug production and manufacturing, running or operating drug production facilities can also result in a death penalty. So in Vietnam, drugs of all forms or kinds, especially heroin, cocaine, if you are seen producing it, possessing it, selling it, manufacturing it, if you are caught, you are likely to be executed or you are likely to be sentenced to death. And it's very common. There are so many instances, so many videos of people who have been caught in this mess. Example is Margaret Luther's case. Now, number two is murder and violent crimes. Vietnam, if you murder anybody or if you are involved in any murder crimes, you are highly to be sentenced to death and finally executed. So these are some of what happens to them. So we have number one, premeditated murder, which is deliberate and planned killing, especially with extreme cruelty or multiple victims. That's it. They are going to sentence you to death if you are engaged in any of these. Number two is murder for hire, as hiring someone to kill or being a contract killer can also lead to execution. When you hire somebody to kill or you are being hired, both the one who hired you and you, the person who are being used, all of you can be killed or you can be sentenced to death. Let me put it in that way. So that is also another context. And an example is one guy, Huang Minhua, who was involved in similar case and was tried, was sentenced to death. He was finally executed, despite numerous concerns from he was executed. So that is one of it. Now the next is rape of a minor. Rape of a minor. In Vietnam, if you rape a minor, you are not just dead, but you are dead. You are dead. So rape of a minor leading to death, sexual violence against minors that results in fatal consequences. So either of these, you can also be sentenced to death in Vietnam. And hey, they enforce the law. And these rules or these laws are regardless of race, color, ethnicity, country. This law is applied rigidly to the Vietnamese citizen. So how much more you a foreigner? If once you are found guilty, you are gone. So that is it. And the next one is corruption and economic crimes. Corruption and economic crimes, in severe cases, embezzlement, with high-ranking officials convicted of stealing large amounts of public funds may face execution. Now, example of this case is the example of Chon Mailan, who was recently convicted for embezzling 44 billion or engaging in 44 billion fraud in Vietnam. She's a business tycoon who had a lot of money, a lot of resources, very influential in Vietnam, control a number of people, institutions. But when she was engaged in fraud, she was arrested, sentenced to death, and recently she appealed and she still lost the appeal. So she's still been sentenced to death. So the next example is bribery in Vietnam. Bribery. So in extreme cases, large-scale bribery involving public officials can also be punishable by law. And that is a clear example is still with the Vietnamese billionaire who recently got citizens. She had multiple infractions of all of these. So if you are involved in bribery, and these rules are even applied to the top executives, people in the highest leadership positions. The laws deal with them. So if the laws deal with them, how much more? You understand me? So that's it. Then the next one is terrorism. Terrorism in Vietnam. That is also another serious case that you can be arrested and you can be sentenced. So organizing or participating in terrorist activities that results in death or severe public harm. And that goes with subversion against the government, activities aimed at overthrowing the government or inciting rebellion. That is also punishable by law or punishable by death in Vietnam. So this is an example of such story published by Vietnam Express. Now, in this story, what was published in 20th January 2024, that was just last year. Just last year, it says that 100 people received sentences in Vietnam terrorism trial. 10 people received life sentences Saturday for terrorism in deadly attacks on government officers in Dak Lak last year, according to a court verdict for 100 defendants in the case. It says among the defendants aged 15 to 56, 53 people were charged with terrorism against the people's government. Among them is He Wang and Sonese, okay, and so the names are here. So he said what they did were considered to be dangerous, especially dangerous, being the masterminds who coerced others into attacking the People's Committee officers in Ka Etu and Ka Tieu communes in the Central Highlands province. So these are real Vietnamese who were sentenced to life imprisonment like that. Now we have another one, which is also for the, if you rape someone. Now this story says that Vietnamese top cop arrested for alleged rape of teen girl. Vietnamese top cop. It says a senior police officer and 3 other men have been arrested for alleged rape of a 14-year-old girl in northern Vietnam. He was sentenced to death. He was sentenced to death. That is a top police officer in Vietnam. So this is also on Vietnam Express and published on 2018. Another offense that can also get you in death row in Vietnam is armed robbery and kidnapping. Armed robbery and kidnapping, which is very common in other countries. In Vietnam, this can get you on death sentence. It says that robbery with lethal consequences. If a robbery results in the death of a victim, the offenders may face execution. That one is straight. That one is very straight. Now, other ones is kidnapping for ransom, leading to death. If the victim dies due to mistreatment or other circumstances, you also face a death row. This is a short education for all of us and to remind all of us that nobody is above the law in Vietnam. In fact, and as we live here as foreigners and as teachers on foreign lands, we got to be very careful in all that we do, in all our dealings, in all our interactions, in all our operations. Be careful because Vietnam upholds the laws of the land. It's not like elsewhere where you call someone who knows someone and someone who knows someone who call, and no, Vietnam, they don't do that. Once you are arrested, you will face the law. And when you face the law, you'll be taken to court. There will be a trial for you. And if truly, you breach the law, then you face the consequences. Nothing can stop them, or nothing will stop them. You face the law. You have your right to reappeal the sentence as many times as you can, but if it is upheld, you still face those consequences. So this is just a small education that Well, I mean, we'll be careful, and then we do the right things living on a foreign land. My name is Chris Kedia Brandt. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.